Welcome to The Messy Middle. That's right. It's your favorite podcast that covers the world of law, tech, politics, the world of work, with just a little bit of fun and pop culture mixed in. That's right. Fun and pop culture. I am your host, the Chief Global Affairs and Legal Officer of LinkedIn, Mr. Blake Lawton. With me, I have some friends today. Hello, friend Mindy. How are you? Are you my friend?
I am your friend.
Are you my friend?
Hello, Blake.
Yes, and of course, my chief of staff and confidant and unwilling participant in this podcast.
I'm here.
Yes, and you are here, so thank you for joining us today. We also have our producer looking at me extremely intently today, Mr. Mike Hughes. How you doing, Mike?
I was just hoping I would be called a friend or have some other adjective ascribed to me. I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm good. I like hanging out with a friend or two.
Nice.
And you are that friend today. So got a great show for you today. On the grab bag, that's the part of the pod where we dig into a little bit of fun and pop culture. We have our friend Josh coming on. We've heard from you, our listeners, wanting to learn a little bit more about how do you dig in on the lifestyle. You enjoyed our tips on fashion. You enjoy our tips on wellness. Well, today, listeners, we have a sommelier coming in. Yes, he is a government affairs person on the legal team, but he is also a former sommelier. He knows about wine, and he is going to educate me, Mike, and Mindy about something that we know nothing about, wine. What if you're at that business dinner and somebody turns to you and says, please order the wine? Well, we're all of a sudden, we're not going to be as big as schmucks as we used to be, and we're going to be able to order that wine. So that's going to be exciting, and we're going to impart that knowledge to you, dear listeners. But before that, we've got an amazing guest today. That's right. Anne Wojcicki, the CEO and founder of 23andMe, somebody who was really a titan in the biotech and health diagnostic field, somebody who helped create an industry that wasn't there, has an amazing story. And 23andMe has some amazing products as well. And one of the things that I think is pretty interesting about that, their products, is it both tells you something about your past, like your ancestry, and it also kind of tells you maybe something about your future because it has all these diagnostic tests, genetics, predispositions, that kind of things. So I thought a good way to set ourselves up today would be to ask you both here, what if you could have something in a kind of low stakes way to either look into your past and your family history, so a family history, a low stakes family history, or a low stakes crystal ball, what's in the future? Not like, am I going to be president of the United States? We all know that none of us are going to be president. Well, actually, anybody can be president of the United States. So maybe we will ask that. But a low stakes thing. Mindy, if you had a low stakes thing about your family history or your futures, what would you want to know?
Well, given the expertise of our guest, actually, I was thinking about genetics.
Okay.
And my mother has beautiful, beautiful red hair. So does my sister. Beautiful red hair. And you keep hearing that redheads are very rare and they're going extinct. I'm kind of curious, when we don't have one yet, of all of our kids, no redheads. So when's the next one?
When's the next one? Not whether or not all redhead. This is not some sort of ginger conspiracy.
No, not ginger conspiracy. Okay. But we're kind of waiting.
You say when, and what do you think?
I think Mike has a redhead, maybe.
Do you have?
Yes, my middle guy has a redhead. And I have brown hair. My wife has brown hair. And distantly, in both of our pasts, there are ancestors that have had red hair. And as my wife explained it genetically, it's recessive. So,
You never know when it's going to show up.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what you would ask.
That's my low stakes one. I have a lot of high stakes questions, but I'm going to keep it light.
We'll do that in the after show.
Yeah, exactly.
That's going to be the premium content that people have to pay for.
Exactly.
All right. How about you, Mike?
I'm very into the youth sports world right now.
Yeah.
I would love to know, will my children... I don't think any of them are going pro. Look at me. They're not
with that
blessed
attitude,
with
Mike.
a ton of athleticism.
Yeah.
But I would love to know what's going to be, are they going to be into sports and what will be their best so I can, guide them in the right way.
This is a very, I feel like this is a very of the moment parental thing. But like in Norway, they don't let you, they put no pressure on kids. Like they're not allowed to keep score in youth sports until they're 13. How do you feel about the Norwegian practice of not keeping score until you're 13?
13's pretty old because I do think America is different than Norway. I think
Yes.
kids need to be taught how to lose gracefully and how to win gracefully.
Oh,
and I
okay.
don't see that all the time in youth sports, and I'm in it at the younger levels. But I do think there's a ton of pressure put on kids in youth sports of like, you have to pick your sport. Like my son's
So
6.
that's why you would like the crystal ball to know where selectively to put the pressure on.
Correct. Like,
So that way you know-
I'm going to lacrosse. I'm going to baseball. I'm
Right.
going to the hockey.
It's a lot.
It would be nice to just skip the
Right.
trying out, and we know what you really like, and we can devote our energy that way.
I see. Makes sense.
What about you? What is your low stakes pick?
I would actually, I'm going to pick low stakes family history.
Okay.
I'm going to go the other way because we can go to the future or the past. And I'm always curious, like, were my ancestors like funny? Like, they're hanging around like in, like the shtetl in Eastern Europe somewhere in like 1700s. Who knows what they're doing? They're like, I don't know. I actually don't know what they were, like cobblers or something, So let's just assume they were cobblers. They were making shoes. Were they cracking jokes? I guess it wasn't you were working a lot. I don't know how funny it was back then. But I'm always kind of curious, like if we went back, like did people have a sense of humor in the Middle Ages? I mean,
I think yes, right? And wasn't some of like Shakespeare's plays were comedies, right?
I mean, if they were. Have you? How often have you watched the Shakespeare play and laughed?
I am unfamiliar with all of Billy the Shake's work.
Okay, so you're a hard pass on everything. So this would work for the future as well. I would also be interested, like, how funny are my ancient progeny? Or my future progeny.
And do they ascribe their sense of humor to their great-grandfather Blake?
Well, they would go into their
Is it genetic? Is there a trait we can?
And of course,
test
they could access their bio probe and then see episodes of the Messy Middle to see, in fact, how hilarious their chief global affairs and legal officer / pop culture guru ancestor was.
It is fascinating to think about because of how humor changes. Like you go back and watching like Charlie Chaplin or like the Three Stooges, not really objectively that funny to me.
That's rough.
I'm not a slapstick guy.
Physical.
Yeah, I'm not a slapstick
comedy
guy.
too, yeah.
But who knows what humor will be in, 150, 200 years from now.
Yes. Well, I think maybe that's something that we should ask our guest. I guarantee that she hasn't gotten that question before.
Yes.
So
Breaking new ground.
again, we have coming on somebody whose product will tell you something about your past, maybe something about your future, and somebody who has helped define an industry, somebody who's led like an extraordinary life when it comes to business and kind of a crazy life generally, and I can't wait to have her on. So let's go over right now and say hello to our guest, Anne Wojcicki. Anne Wojcicki, welcome to the Messy Middle. Great to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So as you know, this is a LinkedIn podcast. We like to kind of like do career journey, walk through people's lives a little bit, personal, professional, all of those things. I thought with you somewhere, I was hoping to start with you, is with your family and growing up. Now, you came from a super interesting family here in Silicon Valley. Your dad, a professor at Stanford, your mom, an educator, and then like three sisters who all high achieving in different ways. And my question for you is like, what was it growing up in this kind of family, particularly like being the youngest of three sisters, all of whom were kind of like, from what I've read at least, kind of go-getters? Was it sort of like, Susan was the blank one, and Janet was the blank one, and Anne was the blank one, and like fill those in? Or what was it like growing up like that?
Okay. Well, listen, I think there's been lots of discussion around my family. And I have to say, growing up, we were very normal. Like Susan was the oldest, Gianna was the middle, and I was the youngest. And so if anything, it was known as the girls and Anne. And so I always joke that I didn't really have a gender identity because it was seen as like, it was the girls and then there was Anne. And so like, what was I? And Susan was very much of like the most responsible child. And I was very much of like that youngest child that had the opportunity of seeing all the mistakes that my siblings made. But the thing that was really unique about Stanford, and I do give Stanford a lot of credit for this, is that they had a housing system where we all lived together. And so all the faculty lived together. And there was something unusual around my area where it was a lot of families with girls. So I lived across the street from a family called the Vostis, and they had 4 girls. And then my best friend, Karen Levy, she was the youngest of 3 girls, and her oldest sister was my sister Susan's best friend. And so we were surrounded by these families with lots of girls. And we just ran free. Like, it was amazing because it was Stanford campus, and you ran pretty free from house to house. And it was really a collective upbringing. And I think the thing that we took away from it was that everyone that we knew on our streets was passionate about what they did. And that passion was always very palatable. And I think the other thing is because it was academic, nobody was really pursuing passions that were commercial. So, for instance, like, you were a math professor, like my next door neighbor, George Danzig, was like a well-known mathematician, father of linear programming. Like, he was just like, he was an eccentric, like, I challenge gravity. Like, I'm looking for, like, my dad who studied neutrinos.
He challenged gravity? I mean, like, I feel like, how did he do it? Did he just jump really high, or how did he do that?
No, I had dinner once with one of my dad's colleagues, and he had said things like, I challenge gravity. And I was like, it's like, gravity's working pretty well right now.
Yeah.
The thing about it, like I said, like the physicists, the mathematicians, the literature majors, like, everyone loved what they did, but it wasn't necessarily for a commercial purpose.
Yeah.
And I loved it. Like, it was it was an amazing environment, and it was very pure in the capacity that, like, people found things that they loved and they pursued those. And it wasn't that pursuit of money. It was really that pursuit of passion. And I think that was one of the things that was most infectious to me and Susan. And and Janet, if you look at all of us, and frankly, like, all the kids who grew up in that area, there was this real pursuit of passion. And even people like someone else you should bring to the show, Andrew Feldman, who, just had the recent IPO. Like, he was one of our neighbors, like, just like loved what he did. And he hasn't changed. Like, he's like, there's this pursuit of, like, I want to improve the world, and I want to learn these things, and how am I going to go and do that? And so I think that was the most defining feature.
Well, it's interesting because I think in the popular culture right now, people would say they'd recognize that passion in this area of Silicon Valley, but I don't think they would first be like, well, it's very passionate, but not all interested in commercial, right? So it's very
totally.
It's very interesting in that, like, so.
I think that's what's changed a lot for us, and I think that's one of those things that. I think for some of us who've been around for a long time, like, it's changed it, because then on some ways, almost everything you look at, like, what's the commercial application is not always the right question. Like, my dad studied neutrinos, and I loved it. My friends used to ask him, like, are neutrinos, like, important in the human body? And say, no. Are they important to Earth? And he'd be like, well, not really, but they're important to the universe. And they'd be like, okay, why do you study that? And he's like, because it's interesting. And, I think that there's something, you do look at, like, all the academic centers, and in some ways it's hard. Like, once there's lots and lots of money coming out, it's hard not to pursue that. But, I do think it's important for academic institutions to pursue areas that are just really, like, the pursuit of knowledge, not always necessarily something that is going to be, the like, licensable by a VC. There needs to be a balance.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And well, first I wanted to ask, I saw that at Yale you were on the ice hockey team. How does a Northern California girl end up playing ice hockey?
Yeah, I actually grew up figure skating, which is also unusual. And for those of you who know the Winter Lodge in Palo Alto, I think it's one of the best kept secrets in this area. And I used to love telling people, like, wow, I grew up outdoor ice skating. And that's where, like, honestly, again, when you think about a passion project, Mr. Williams, who started the Winter Lodge and who was, like, had this dream of an outdoor ice skating rink, like, he pursued that. And then in the 80s, he actually convinced the city of Palo Alto to turn it into a nonprofit and to support it, because obviously like a large outdoor ice skating rink in California is not like a big moneymaker with this kind of real estate environment. Nope. But I loved it. I loved ice skating. I taught there for years. I knew the whole team. Like even a lot of the people that I grew up skating with actually still work at the Winter Lodge. And so when I went to college, the first year I actually did precision ice skating, and I competed on this national team of precision skating. And I just realized like that wasn't part of Yale. So then I wanted to do something else. And I joke I'm a Title IX baby. So I knew how to skate really well. I didn't know the rules. It took me a while to learn about offsides. And I started on the hockey team. And it was amazing. It was an amazing group of people. And I had no idea that you could skate so fast and slam into walls and not feel it.
That was serious, because I probably watched some of those games that you were in, because we went to school around the same time. And I was friends with a bunch of the women on the hockey team, and they did not mess around. They would hip check you. They were tough, man. So it was fun. And listen, having grown up skating, but always fallen on ice, like ice skaters, figure skaters don't have the luxury of pads. Oh, yeah.
So like I was like used to falling on raw, cold ice. And then suddenly I was like, wow, I can like,
you're like, oh, this is easy. Yeah. This is
easy.
Yeah.
Totally.
All these soft hockey players. So
yeah, exactly.
So you graduate from Yale, and then you spend a period on Wall Street in biotech doing sort of being an analyst, research, all this. At some point, you say, okay, you're gonna make your bones. You're gonna start your own company. You come up with this idea. What's the founding idea? Like, what motivated you to do it? What was like from this period in your life? When do you come from somebody who's watching and analyzing and breaking things down to building?
Yeah, I graduated college, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. And again, thinking about my LinkedIn world, like the world that we live in today, I always encourage young people to do this. Like I graduated, I had no idea what I want to do. Just explore. And my parents, I was lucky that I had this opportunity to try out different things. I was temping in different jobs. I try out different stuff. And my mom, I randomly, like super randomly, somebody had sent my resume to this investment firm, and they offered me a job. And I actually only took the interview because I wanted the frequent flyer miles. I had no interest in the job.
What airline?
I just was like, United.
Oh, nice.
Actually, sorry. At that point, it was Continental, because I was obsessed with Micronesia, and they were the only ones who flew to Palau. So all I said is this is
a very decision of your 20s. I like it.
It's a decision of your choice. But the important thing is that I always tell young people, you have no idea where you're going to be what path is going to lead to something significant in your life. And it's important to always be open to those opportunities. So I got this job interview. I had no idea what it was. Like I showed up, like I remember like I only had one shoe. Like I was like so disorganized for it, but they offered me this job, and it was like,
wait, you went to an interview with one shoe on. This is nobody believes this, Anne. Come on.
I think no. I only packed one, so I had to go and buy some others. But I remember thinking, I was like, I have no socks. Like I was like, I didn't know what when you're in your 20s, like you don't know what you're doing.
No.
And so I showed up and I got the job offer, and it was so out of my comfort zone. Like, I don't know, like it was like Wall Street. Like I didn't even know what this was. Like a P&L, a balance sheet. Like this is like beyond, like this is like not related to neutrinos. Like this is not English class. Like it was so foreign to me. And my dad is the one who encouraged me to take the job. And I took the job, and it opened up this whole world to me, where suddenly I was like, I can get paid to research biotech companies. Like this is a job. Like this is extraordinary. And I used to always tell my boss, like, I can't believe I'm so lucky that you pay me to do this. Like I travel the world and I meet scientists, and I'm learning about xenotransplantation. I'm learning about biotech. I'm learning about genetics. Like this is amazing. And after probably about 5 years, there's a little bit where it went from just doing like all the high octane innovation, where I started investing also in healthcare, and I switched from a long only fund into hedge funds. And when I started investing more in traditional healthcare, that's when I started to realize the incentives were really off. And again, if you remember my childhood, like I came from this world of passion. So my first job was like really interesting, xenotransplantation, like that's like a passion project, like innovating genetics, like that's passion. When you start getting into billing and acute care management, like is like the nuts and bolts of healthcare. And I started to realize like, holy cow, like this is about the money. And you look at areas like dialysis, where you put a dollar value on each patient and you're suddenly recognizing like, oh no, like all these companies, like they're betting like a certain number of people are going to need dialysis every year. Like, and I realized I went to this one meeting where they were talking about billing and billing optimization. And I remember I used to always think like, there's all this data in healthcare. Why aren't we using this data? Like, doesn't that help you stay healthier? And I realized at one point, all that data was just being used for billing optimization. It was all being used to say like, oh, you're going in for knee surgery. How am I going to squeeze more dollars out of that? Like you show up, you have like a stomach ache. Like, is there a better billing code? Is there a better way to approach it? Like none of it was about keeping you out of the system. And so I just realized there was this money incentive that, wow, like that's not a passion project for me to like take advantage of sick people. Like I wasn't interested. So I started volunteering at night at Belvedere Hospital in New York and San Francisco General. And I wanted to reconnect back with patients. And through that, I also got to know, I started investing in the HIV world. And I got to know all the HIV advocacy groups like Project Inform and the Gay Men's Health Crisis Center. And there was this guy in San Francisco named Martin Delaney. And he was extraordinary. He was not a physician, not a PhD, but he would come back to the masses and say, like, this is what's happening in, HIV resistance. This is the clinical trial. This is where we should go. This is how we should mobilize. And it was like the first time I saw not just like a happy pink ribbon of like, oh, we're marching and we hand over a check, but these people who were like, I drive accountability. I'm going to be dead in 9 months if we don't change this. Like, I need the FDA to have an accelerated path. And I became obsessed with what the HIV community was doing. And I was saying, like, the whole world, like the healthcare system needs to be that kind of proactive, like, patient, where we all need to be demanding that kind of accountability, that you can't have people who are just sitting back and waiting for the system to take care of them because the system doesn't have the right incentives to take care of you. And so I became increasingly frustrated. And like every meeting I was doing, I had this one meeting with a pharma exec and he was like, oh, life is so good. I get people on, Ritalin, and then I get them on birth control, and then I get, hormone replacement therapy, and then I have everyone on a statin. And I was like, oh my God, is this like really the industry I'm in? Like, is this like what we're doing? And so 23andMe came out of this passion again of like, what do I really genuinely love in my life? Like I love healthcare. I love connecting with people. And I think all of us deserve this opportunity to live a long, happy, healthy life. And I was impressed with what I saw with, the social movement, like, again, Facebook, early days of Facebook, like online 2.0, people could connect. And I was like, I can do the HIV community online. I don't need to like actually have to be physically in person. But the most important thing, I can get your genetic data. You can self-report all this information, and your genetics is your foundation of your health. Sure. It's the foundation. If you have a risk factor, if you have like high risk for cancer, high risk for heart disease, even HIV resistance, all of that is in your genome. And if we all go and get our genetic data and we all self-report, you can have the world's largest research community. And together, we're all aligned about staying healthier. The healthcare system might not be aligned, but you and me together, like us as individuals, we all care about being healthier. And so how do I align people together? How do I bring people together, say, you need to take care of yourself. The most important thing for you to do is to step up, take ownership of your health, and that then opting into research, we have this opportunity to transform research and to use all this data, not for billing optimization about how I'm going to actually make more money, but how do I genuinely keep you out of the system altogether?
Awesome. So what we see here clearly is a tie from what we were talking about earlier is you'd found your passion. right? You'd
I
found,
love.
you'd found
I
some,
have other passions too.
yeah, but you've great. That's good. But you've
Yeah.
found a clear passion,
Totally.
and tying to something that we're going to have. We also talked about is the commercial aspect, because you're going to founding a company where in order for this to survive, there needs to be a commercialization, a product aspect of it. So we wanted to basically dig in a little bit with you on what the product actually is and the ups and downs of those products. I know Mike wanted to ask you something about the Ancestry product.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so you were talking, and kind of the impetus is on the genetic marker, and that's the foundation for your health. One of the products, though, or one of the things you get with a 23andMe test, which I'm a customer, by the way,
good job.
is you get an ancestry profile and breakdown. And I think for some that is somewhat of a novelty of finding out, oh, I'm actually 30% Dutch or 50% Russian, and then. To some, that is the end-all be-all, and they are very passionate and into the ancestry component. Did any of that surprise you when you're talking to folks, that's the piece they latch onto?
Then everything about 23andMe has surprised me. I people have to realize, like, when we started 23andMe, no one had ever gotten their genome before. Like you had sort of the esoteric world of mitochondrial testing and Y chromosome, where you can look at your mother's mother's mother or your father's father's father. But we were the ones who introduced, autosomal chromosome painting, which is where you look across all 23 pairs of your genome and you're looking at, like, where are you from in the world? And we did that because of this professor at Stanford, Luca Cavalli-Sforza, who had the foresight to go around the world in the 60s and collect samples everywhere. And we paid to sequence all those samples, and then we could use that as a reference base to help people understand where they were from. We had no idea. Like, I remember my ex-husband at one point saying, imagine the day that you connect people together, like find relatives. And we were like, whoa, that would be like unbelievable. We had no idea what it would be like. And I remember the first time I got my results, and I was like, wow, like I'm half Jewish. And I know my mom's Jewish, my dad's Catholic, like, and it shows up. I was like, wow, like to see that in black and white was almost kind of shocking. And my roommate in college, Monica, if you look at old presentations, we always talked about Monica, because Monica, has, she has a mother of Mexican heritage, an African-American father. She had some Jewish ancestors in there. So she was like our first, like, very complicated case. And it was like amazing. I remember presenting at TED, and I was like, look up Monica. Like you don't have to see her picture, you just see her genome. And I remember this one guy called out. He's like, she looks hot. I'm like, she is. She's like stunning. And so I was like, that diversity suddenly was like, it was beautiful. We had no idea how people would respond to all of that. And I always said, I started 23andMe. The core premise of it was, I want to understand the human genome. Mm-hmm. Like, if you understand the code of life, there's going to be benefits for all of us to improve our health. I knew that we all wanted to understand ourselves, but I didn't realize how many people lack that understanding of, like, my identity. Where do I come from? I'm adopted. I want to know more about myself. Or so many people who find out, like, I never really felt like I fit into my family, and then suddenly they turns out they're genetically not connected to that family, that they actually had a different biological family. Or this concept of how much we were suddenly in the conversation on race. And like, what does that actually really mean? And like, how much helping people understand race is a social construct. Like my roommate, like, what does that mean? Like, what box on a survey does she fill out? But I can look at her genetically and I can understand, okay, here's different parts of the world where your DNA has evolved. But like, what does race mean? And like, why are we calling that in certain ways? And, I loved going to, again, because I said I'm Jewish, I spoke at the American Society of Reform Rabbis. And I loved coming in with like all these different pictures of like Jewish identity and being like, like, hello, you guys, like, what are you going to do when someone walks in and they're like, I'm 10% Jewish? Shalom. Like, I want to join the tribe. Like, what do you do? Or like, what does that mean if someone's 10% African? Are they African American? Is there like, are we defining a threshold? Like how do we think about all this now? And I'm so lucky to the early employees of this company because they set a really strong foundation on ethics. And so we always had this part of what 23andMe was thinking about is like, what are the consequences of all this information we're uncovering? What's the consequences of getting people this information? And that's why we publish so much. It's why we're really thoughtful. We engage a lot with the academic community on like, okay, well, how do we rethink about like, what does that mean to be Jewish? How do we think about like identity? What does that mean? And ultimately, like when I look at a world that's so polarized and so much conflict, and I can say, you guys are all 99.5% the same.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much similarity, and diversity is our collective superpower. If we were all the same and we all could do one thing well, it would be awful. But like, it's great that you have Warren Buffett and you have Michael Jordan, you have like all different types in the world. Mm-hmm. Like the diversity is our superpower and we should embrace that. But we're so similar to each other and that diversity is our superpower. And on a health side, you also then start to see that because having that genetic diversity, like the fact that some people genetically can't get HIV, like, isn't that amazing? You're like, can't get it. And so you have that with all kinds of infectious diseases. You have that like across the board with like some people can't, like they only have super low LDL. Like that's so interesting. So I think from the business side on the ancestry, it did surprise me. It surprised me how much people loved it and that there was this part of the world where people were missing that sense of identity. They wanted to know where they come from. And suddenly we were able to fill this gap and that whole industry, that whole area just exploded.
I know Mindy had a question for you on the ethics side about how you think about what you publish.
Yeah. Some of the data you deliver to individuals could be super life-altering. How much confidence do you need in that data to actually deliver it to somebody, especially when they might not have a medical professional that they could consult? Like, people might go change their whole life if they find out they have a certain variant, a gene variant. So how much confidence do you think?
We definitely, look, the earliest thing, and in some ways based on ancestry, I love telling this story. I had one of my early investors. He got 23andMe and he's Southeast Asian. He's South Asian. And very clear, like his whole family's from India. He's from there. And 23andMe told him, and again, the earliest days, that he had some Swedish DNA. And he was like, oh, I'm Swedish. And like suddenly he was like going to the Swedish embassy and he had a Swedish girlfriend. And I was like, oh my God, you guys, this is a disaster. Like, he's not Swedish. Like, we need to fix this right away. But the thing that I came to my research team is I was like, people take this information really seriously.
Yeah.
Like, even if it's ancestry and people do change their identities. Like people call me all the time and they're like, I was 1% Japanese and you took it away. I was going to Japan for vacation. Like, what happened? So from the earliest days, I would walk into the research team. I was like, we have to help people know, like we have to make sure that all the information we're returning back is accurate. And so we always took the health side incredibly seriously because we knew that if I was going to tell you you're genetically high risk for Alzheimer's, I'd better be right about that. Like, I can't say like, oh, sorry. Like, no, that's not. Like, I have to be right. And for that reason, we always walk this balance between how do we be really pro-consumer and give you the information you want, but make sure that it's like really anchored in science. And so, for instance, like one of the issues that's happening there today is like people will take their genome and potentially upload it into an LLM or they get interpretations from others. Like, you can go ahead and do that. I would not necessarily trust the interpretation of that. And we've seen that as an issue. Like 23andMe spends a huge amount of time making sure that the data is accurate and that the way we make sure it's accurate is you compare the analysis. We run hundreds of samples through to make sure of known variants to make sure that we know we are actually getting that right call. And so in 2013, we the FDA told us, like, you are a medical device, you have to go through this process. We stopped returning health information, and now we've gone through, I think 7 or 8 FDA, 9 FDA authorizations. Sorry, I keep forgetting. 9 FDA authorizations where we prove out this information is highly accurate and it's clinically meaningful. And so you can trust the information that you're getting has been well validated and that this information is meaningful. So that's everything to us, because we know that people do get it, whether it's ancestry or it is a medical report. It's important information. And so we always tell people in certain areas, like a BRCA variant for breast cancer, there can always be errors. It's always important for people to do repeat testing. So as much as we say we have this confidence with our test, you should go in, it's always helpful to do a repeat, like in any capacity. Like even if I ever get like a high cholesterol, like other tests, like you always repeat. And so we've always said that as well to people, is that you want to go, like before you go and you get a mastectomy, repeat the test to make sure. But we've never, our test goes through an extraordinary process to make sure it's accurate.
I want to ask you basically a product marketing question.
Sure.
So you go public eventually, like long period of growing. You go public in 21, and all of a sudden you have the expectations of Wall Street on you in different ways. One of the core, what I would expect is one of the core product marketing problems of this thing is that, like, you've got the ancestry part, which we've talked about, and the sort of genetic predisposition and sort of like telling you maybe something about your future in different ways and from a genetic standpoint and who you could be. On some deep-seated level, I think some people just don't want to know. I mean, if you think like almost biblical, like Adam and Eve, you're taking the apple from the tree of knowledge, or Prometheus stealing fire and being punished for it. Like I myself, like even though I want to learn some things, part of me has a deep-seated fear of really knowing or possibly knowing about that. And I would imagine that that's a kind of a potentially big product marketing problem for the company, if it, particularly once you're in a spot where Wall Street wants you to grow. So how did you guys talk about that? Did you think about that? And how would you think about that within the company?
So a lot to unpack in that question. So first and foremost, we've always had this approach. Again, 23andMe is about teaching you about the human genome, and it's a reflection of you. It's your digital representation. And, you don't always want to examine every part of your body. You don't always want to look at everything. So for some people, you're right. They don't want to look at their Alzheimer's report. They don't want to understand their cancer risk. They just want to look at their ancestry. Or maybe they're having children and they want to know their CF result. So for the areas that we deemed, that have the highest potential impact on individuals, like Alzheimer's, cancer, et cetera, it's an additional layer of consent. And so you're completely right. Not everybody wants to know. And a lot of times people want to know at different points in their life. Like if you're 21, if I look at like my nephew, does he want to know about his cancer risk for like later? Like maybe not then, but when he's 45 and he has 2 kids, right, and he could do something about it, he could have proactive PSA testing. I think the thing is like I have one of my friends from college who died early of BRCA. And she just got it. She knew she was a carrier and she got the surgery. She got it too late. And so those things start to happen and you wake up and you're like, shit, like I need to be on it. I either need to be on it or I potentially suffer the consequences of not being on it. And I think a lot of genetics is about age appropriate. It's almost like, it's TV content. Like what's age appropriate? In your 20s, it's a different type of information that you want than in your 30s or 40s or 50s. And then I got some people in their 80s and they're like, I'm already 80. Like, why do I my heart disease risk, all these things. So at different points, but all that, there's genetic information that's appropriate at every age. And I think one of the hardest things for us to figure out is like, what is matching that content with where you are and when that is. So that's that point. I should just be super clear. When 23andMe went public, like we were an old company at the time that we went public.
For sure, 15 years, I
know, it was a long time. And it was never my aspiration. the reason why we went public is because we did drug discovery. And this is one of the things that's like commonly misunderstood around 23andMe. And people will comment like, oh, you ran the consumer business and it was losing money, et cetera. The consumer business was always very much of a mission business, help people get access to the information and contribute to research. And we're extraordinary at that. Over time, as we started to be able to do research, we realized we're sitting on research gold. Like when we had 100,000 customers, we suddenly realized like we can do things that no one else in the world can do. Like the magic of the company is not just on the genetic testing and the ancestry and health and all this. The magic of the company is like I'm the only one who's figured out how to bring people together, ask them questions in such a way, give them the trust to opt into research, and then put out really meaningful research to individuals. So we had a whole period of time of like working with Michael J. Fox Foundation on Parkinson's and other areas. We published like our depression study got so much interest from the world, our breast cancer research, addiction research. So in 2015, we decided like all this research we have, how do we make the biggest impact with that? And the only thing that has ever been shown to really improve your likelihood of success in drug discovery is starting with a genetic target. So like in all this world of like AI hype and like protein this and that, like that's all great and it'll be a really amazing tool. But the only thing that has actually been shown to improve your likelihood of success, and remember that 90% of all drugs fail. Like it's one of those industries where it is like mining. It's like a really tough industry. So starting with a human genetic variant is like the number one thing you can do to improve the likelihood of success. And so Hal Barron, who was at Genentech at the time, he's like, you could change everything. You could shift all the odds because you have these genetic insights. You could actually help the world improve drug discovery. So we brought on Richard Scheller, who is the head of R&D at Genentech. We started a program. We ended up doing a huge deal with GSK. Hal Barron was the chief medical officer there. It was an extraordinary partnership. We had, over 50 programs. We had, 2 that 23andMe was running in the clinic. We had a phase 2 and a phase 1, both in cancer. And then we went public because I had to have capital to support drug discovery. And I think that's where it's one of those things that's always clear to people, like, we didn't go public necessarily because of the consumer business and we were trying to monetize that. It was really, we'd made a huge bet on drug discovery and the market really fell out in 22 and 23. And so our timing was challenged. But the reason to go public and the vision of where we were going was like, we have created inadvertently again as well, this incredible machine of helping individuals get empowered on themselves, having them opt in for research, and then putting out really meaningful discoveries. One of the best things we could do for mankind is to actually invent new therapies that will actually help people treat disease.
Well, I'll come back to that because I think it's super interesting. But it's interesting. Like, was one of the things, like often like a superpower is also potentially a weakness. And in this situation, this opt-in that you had where people were opting in their information with other people that they were connected to in this network environment ultimately ended up becoming a vulnerability that was exploited as part of this data security incident that you had later on. My understanding is you had a credential stuffing attack. So for folks who don't know, credential stuffing is there's passwords that are out there on the web. They're found, and then the people, like hackers, basically try and log into accounts. And then once they do that, some of them people reuse their passwords. Don't reuse your passwords, people. If you listen to one thing on the messy middle, do not reuse your passwords. But everybody, like, there's a bunch of people who do. You have a vulnerability, and certain number of accounts get compromised, but because those folks are, connected to other folks on the network, it becomes a bigger area of vulnerability. My question for you, like, look, I am somebody who understands this, like in a way that maybe others weren't. I was like leading the legal response for LinkedIn when we had a password breach, one of the early ones on the internet. And what I recognize and remember is that like in that situation, it's almost like a fog of war situation. Everybody after the fact comes and tells you all the things that you should have done and how you should know everything perfectly. But in the moment, it is very hard to know what's going on and what to do. I know that one of the things, like the values that at 23andMe is basically get to yes or no quickly, and then is that it? Something along those lines.
Yeah.
How did you, when you're in this, did you find, like, in this situation, was it a fog of war type situation where you were trying to deal with this vulnerability? And how were you able to, like, live up to that value or not of being able to make decisions in that challenging situation?
Ooh, so many good questions. Okay, so first,
sorry, I loaded you up too much there.
Yeah. You know, you put a lot in that. So the credential stuffing had nothing to do with the research consent, because you said that right in the beginning. So I just want to clarify.
Okay, my bad.
People who opted in, it had nothing to do with it. People who opt into research, it's a revocable consent. They can opt in, they can opt out at any time. The thing that happened, we had 14,000 people where their accounts were compromised through credential stuffing, meaning that, again, as you said, their accounts, they were able to get in because their emails and addresses were found online, and they were able to get in. Each individual. So, for instance, if I am opted into DNA relatives, this is completely an opt-in for individuals. DNA relatives, I have 10,000 relatives.
Yes.
And so 23andMe, and people could debate this, like, you're a lawyer, I'm not a lawyer, but we could debate this, right or wrong.
Yeah.
23andMe decided, because we've always erred, then one of the core values for us is, one of it is get to yes or no quickly. But transparency and choice is like the foundation of this company. And so we said, if you're an individual that was compromised and you have 10,000 relatives, are those names compromised? Are that, like, you were connected there? Does that count as a genetic component? Because you are genetically, you might be a 10th cousin. And so it was a legal interpretation. Did I need to notify 6 million people, or should I have just notified 14,000 people?
Mm-hmm.
I would say that is the number one thing I look back on, and I say, wow, I'm not positive that leaning into that kind of radical interpretation was the right thing. We had 14,000 people where they were credential stuffed. And then you had the millions that were connected genetically to those 14,000 people. I don't know. Like, in retrospect, we could rethink that in lots of ways. And I think the number one thing that I think about is, you're 100% right. Like, getting to yes or no and decision tree. We went public during COVID. And so I had an amazing team, a lot of people, but being public is 100% like going from the, junior leagues to the MLB. Like, it's the major leagues. And particularly during COVID, it was tough. It was tough to resolve that issue in the right way. And I think it's critical. Like, now I invest heavily in cyber. We've always invested heavily in cyber, but like the tabletop exercises, like, I remember, like, Nikesh from Palo Alto Networks was like, why didn't you call me? I'm like, he is now on speed dial. Like everyone, if you work in cyber, like, I have gotten to know, and I'm like, okay, I need to make sure that when there's a crisis, if that ever happens again, you have to reach out. Like, those first 24 hours, it's like a kidnapping in some way. Like, the first 24 hours are everything. And it was tough. It was 100% tough, because it was in the middle of, we were still in that tail end of COVID. It was a rough time. So I don't think that we necessarily got to the right yes or no in the right way. I think that I definitely would look back on that in all kinds of ways. I'm always here, and I say this to any CEO, I'm always here to help. If there is like the number one thing I've learned over the last couple of years is it was lonely. Yeah. And there were very few people I could call. And so I am like, I am anyone who's in that kind of crisis, like, I want to help, because no good company should have to go through everything that I went through. And so I'm 100% here to help. I'm like, there, like, I've survived. I feel really lucky. I'm very grateful to everyone who's helped with that. But we learned a lot, and that like, everything I've learned is really valuable to help that next generation.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense to me. By the way, if it happens again, call me too. I've been through it too.
Totally.
Exactly. Because I, as you could tell, when you're in these situations, it's very easy after the fact for folks to be like, here's all the things that you should have done. But when you're in the middle of it, it becomes much less clear, which is why it's just hard to know. But I like it definitely feels like you have learned and are going to apply that. So
well, listen, we should come up with a call list. Like who were like the top 5 most recent like disastrous cyber incidents where you can call them and say, because you do have to make decisions quickly, and finding the right team around you is critical. Like I think because again, you do have time limits. Like you have to communicate in a certain time. Like you have to put everything out. Like responding appropriately is everything. So we should, but again, that's like what I think about. Like who are those top 5? Who do you call, and how do we help the next generation?
Mostly, I just want to hang out with you, Anne. That's why I said that. But
okay, good. Well, listen, anytime, man, anytime.
One of the things that we were interested in, because you did, the company went public, and you had a thing where eventually there's bankruptcy, and you bought it back as a nonprofit. We go through that story, but the thing that Mindy and I were interested, we were talking about before, is we were wondering, particularly with what you were saying before in the beginning about like what your motivation is, passion project, and not all being commercial. Like, is there any silver lining of this in that now 23andMe is in the hands of a nonprofit?
I mean, it was such a bad experience. It's hard for me. I mean, I think it's...
We're too Pollyanna on that one. Mindy,
No. I think a lot about like, okay, there must be like the gods above. Like, what is that? What was the meaning? I'm really grateful that we're a nonprofit.
Yeah.
And I joke internally, like for people who've been here a long time, I was like, I have delivered on so many opportunities, like a private company, public company, bankruptcy, now we're nonprofit. I was like, every experience possible we have delivered on.
Every corporate lawyer wants to hang out with you.
Yeah, I know. Trust me. I have a lot of them. But I think honestly, like we always debated in those earliest days, like we're mission driven, like we've always been mission driven, like we've always focused on the right thing. Like there's a reason why we don't sell vitamins. We don't get into shampoo. Like we haven't expanded, like I'm not doing peptides. Like we, again, maybe shampoo and skin cream would be great. Like I just, we're so honest with the science, and I feel passionately like people every single day are taken advantage of. And it really upsets me. It's like awful to me when I see friends and they like are buying something that's useless, or they're in a hospital and they're being told the wrong advice. Like I become like a psychotic pit bull. I was like, I'm coming after to help you. Like, because it's so awful to take advantage of people when they're vulnerable like that. So us being a nonprofit now allows me to lean into the mission. And we were always focused. Like, I want people to get their BRCA results. Like, I want people to know they're genetically high risk for cardiovascular disease because they can do something. Like, that to me is like the biggest tragedy is when somebody, is in their 50s or 60s and they have kids and they're like, I'm going to miss out on these events because this was caught late and it could have been caught earlier. Like, that's just tragic. So I really care about my mission. And the mission is to help people access, understand, and benefit from the human genome. And we always debate in those early days, like maybe we're better as a nonprofit because we're so mission driven. But it felt like in those early days, like, no, there's a business here. And to really grow, you have this debate. Like, if you need access to capital markets, do you need to be a public company or a PBC or something? And I think, frankly, like OpenAI and Anthropic have all kind of started to change this in some ways. But what I appreciate now is my mission is solidified. The things that I care about. So people always have choice. You always have the right to learn information or to delete your account. And deleting your account was really important to me because I want people to feel in control. Because if you think about most of the time when you go to the doctor, people don't realize this. You can't delete anything from your medical record. You go to the doctor and you tell them like, hey, I have, suicidal thoughts and I have this and that. Well, hello, people, it's in your medical record forever. And so you can't deletes it. Like you can't put something in there and that you can't I can't ship things in that and I can't take things out. But I think it's important for people to have some of that control over their genetic information. And so being able to delete and feeling in power and opting into research or opting out of research, opting into DNA relatives, opting out of DNA relatives, like that's just really important to me. And I feel, again, even I'm probably more extreme because I feel like you don't have any of those rights in traditional healthcare. And so I am happy as a nonprofit because I can lean into what is always in the best interest of you. Like all I care about, like what's in your best interest. Second, the research I realize is so valuable. And I no longer need to say, I'm just going to commercialize this with Big Pharma. The most impactful thing 23andMe can do is to enable researchers everywhere to benefit from the insights that we're finding. Almost every single disease area. Like we had someone from American Heart talk, and I was like, listen, I have 88,000 people with stroke, all different colors and parts of the world and whatnot, ages. I can help make so many discoveries. Eye disease, rare disease, cardiovascular, neurological, cancer. We have my sister's lung cancer community. So I want to accelerate our knowledge all over the place, like all these disease areas. And one of the most important things that we need to do is to empower the people who are genuinely thinking about prevention. So again, going back to my number one takeaway from my Wall Street days is that most data is going to be used to turn into some insight that's going to be part of the current healthcare system, which is fine. And once you have a disease, you're very grateful you want to be managed. But I just want to stay out of it, period. I would rather just never be diabetic. I never want to have heart disease. I never want cancer. So tell me how I can do that. Tell me what's really true. Tell me what's meaningful. And I'll do those things within reason. But that's where I want this data to really help us understand prevention. And then those insights lead to potential novel beneficial treatments and cures.
Well, I mean, that is a definitely a noble mission. And during this conversation, I feel like you're getting me over my fear here. So maybe I will take the plunge and actually go ahead and get my 23andMe as well. But we're almost at the end of the time here. On the pod, we always end with a segment that's a little bit more of we call it our grab bag, something that's a little more fun and pop culture. And this time we're interviewing somebody on my team who is a wine enthusiast, a sommelier, because we like to get lifestyle advice and what kind of wine we want to drink. And we're trying to figure out how to apply that to 23andMe. We know that you have there's some traits that you have in there, about alcohol, does it make your cheeks flush? And we were wondering, did you ever look to see an alcohol, was there an alcohol tolerance check ever?
Yeah.
Did you look at that? Who could hold their liquor test for 23andMe? I feel like that would be a moneymaker.
We've had all kinds of interesting ideas. So there is actually the genetic variant, and you see this often. It's called the Asian flush, where you get red. And so we do have a genetic variant. We do have a report around that, so you can tell people. In the earliest days of 23andMe, there were all kinds of crazy, frankly, kind of awful ideas. Oh. But one of them was about
tell us all of them.
Oh man, there were so many. Listen, there was the genetic art, and I remember there was a group that was making a genetic tie, and I was like, you guys, no one's going to buy a genetic tie. But one of the reports they also had was to help you use your DNA to pick a wine. Oh. And at the end of the day, I mean, maybe it sounds sort of interesting, but at the end of the day, people just they like to try the wine.
Yeah.
People, that's one of those things. It was just easy enough to try it. I don't know. I'm not positive I would pay to have my DNA done to say hey, here's the wine you might like. No. Just give me the wine.
I'm all in on it.
You're all in on it?
Go through my 23andMe account and let me know.
Mike needs the help.
The best thing I've done recently, so I just spoke at I have a 7-year-old, and I spoke in the first grade class, and I brought PTC paper, which is a kind of paper that has a chemical on it. And I had all the kids put it on their tongue, and only some kids can taste it. And that is genetic. Huh. So it's a specific chemical, only some people can taste it, but it's the main ingredient. It's one of the ingredients in broccoli, asparagus. So for all the kids who could taste it on their paper, I was like, you now have a license to tell your parents, I don't need to eat broccoli or asparagus, or broccoli or Brussels sprouts. And so I had all these parents call me that night, and they're like, "What was this that you gave my child?"
Yes.
But that's the most useful one.
Popular person in the second grade class in the history of second grade.
Totally. The kids love me. The kids are always like, "Yeah, I no longer need to eat that broccoli."
Anne.
Yes.
Well, Anne, we're cheering you as well here at the Messy Middle. It's really appreciate you coming on and learning more about your journey, your passion, all of getting the 23andMe skeptic a little scared over the hump maybe, and just really appreciate you spending some time with us.
Good. Well, so nice to see you guys, and I will be door dashing or sending over some kits to you ASAP.
All right.
To take advantage of this enthusiasm for spitting.
Yes, that passion in the spitting. I've seen that.
Yes.
So we'll do that. Thanks again, Anne. We appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. Good to see you.
Good to see you. All right. Welcome to the Grab Bag. That's the part of the podcast where we dig into a little bit of fun and pop culture. And we have some fun with you today. With us, joining us, our friend Josh Connolly by day, congressional lead on the LinkedIn team by night, wine enthusiast and sommelier. Josh, you're here to educate us a little bit more about wine. Now, we know in a work setting, you don't have to drink wine. In your personal life, you don't always have to drink wine. More people aren't. But for those who do enjoy, many of us are out there and we're like, boy, I feel a lot lost. I'm at sea. I need to be educated. I need to know more. And that's why we have brought you on, Josh. So welcome to the Messy Middle.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So, Josh, start us off here. Mindy, Mike, and I were out at that work function. We need to know how to order the bottle of wine. What always happens is somebody turns to me, they give me a gigantic book, and they're like, "Hey, Blake, you pick." And I'm like, I turn and I this one is 1/3 of the way down, and it costs a lot less than the other ones, but it's not the cheapest. So I'm going to pick that. How do I do better?
So I think first is, what type of restaurant are you at? If it's more at a steakhouse, you're probably going to go red. If you're more at a seafood place, you're probably going to be more inclined to get a white. If you've got a critical mass of folks, you might want to get a bottle of red and a bottle of white. So I think step 2 is, you probably don't want to go with the big regions, because the bigger, the bigger the region, the bigger folks, the more folks know about a region, the more the markup probably is going to be, and the more expensive it's going to be. So you might want to focus on a lesser known or just cheaper region.
So not Napa?
Not Napa, not Bordeaux, not Burgundy would be the first 3. Probably not Tuscany either.
Go for the Catskills is what you're saying.
Go for the Catskills. Go for the Catskills.
Okay.
Exactly what I meant.
Right.
Yeah.
See, exactly. I'm already learning, Mike. You knew this though. You're a Catskill wine guys.
Yes.
Yeah. Mike likes all the best varietals out of Schenectady, New York.
Yes. That's where Mad Dog 2020 is from.
Okay.
Beautiful stuff.
So we're out there, and good thing we're going to do a little live demo here. We're going to have our friends come out here and show us, because one of the things, of course, is doing that tasting. So people are going to come out and they're going to give us the glasses, and you are going to show us how do we approach that approachable glass and bottle.
Sure. So I'm going to pour a glass myself. So one is, when you're tasting a wine, it should be the right. One is, this might be a little controversial, but stemless versus stem glasses. I think stem glasses make a lot of sense, because you're not manhandling the glass, you're not warming it up, you're not getting your mitts all over it. And so you want to hold it by the stem. You want to have a large enough bowl where you can swirl it around. You don't want it too full. Before you even do anything, you want to look at the wine. You want to see what it looks like. So if it's super dark and opaque, it probably indicates that it's going to be a big, ripe, extracted wine. It might be New World, but that tells you something. If there's bricking on the side near the edge, it might tell you that there's a little bit of age on it. It should be clear. And so that's kind of the first thing. You kind of not overly examine the wine, but you want to take a glance at it.
So I'm holding the wine up. I'm looking at it.
Yeah.
I make sure there's no bricks.
What's bricking?
I
What
don't
does
know.
bricking look like?
How does one brick a wine?
So if there's kind of like an orange translucent kind of ring around the glass, around the wine, it kind of indicates there's some age potentially.
Big time bricking here.
Big
Second-
time.
Big time
We're bricking big time over
Yeah.
here. Show us. Okay.
Yeah.
We don't know where this
So
wine came from.
secondly, so if you take a 1 second glance, you want to smell the wine, and you don't want to kind of smell it from afar. You really want to
Get that nose in
get
there.
your nose in. Yeah, you want to maybe spin it, swirl it around first, like this.
Don't spit in it. You didn't say spit it. You said spin it.
Spin it.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, swirl. You want to swirl the
Okay.
wine.
Swirl it.
Okay. I've seen this on the interweb, so that makes sense. Good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Boozy.
and you want to see how it smells. You want to make sure it doesn't smell musty or kind of corky or kind of wet kind of cardboard, because that could indicate that there's a flaw in the wine.
Wet cardboard
That it could be corked.
Would be a bad smell.
Yeah.
A bad smell. So so basically, why they're tasting you on the wine when they open the bottle at a restaurant, you're basically checking to make sure the wine's correct, making sure there's not a flaw in the wine.
Mm-hmm.
You want to make sure you like the wine, but really what the test is there a flaw in the wine? So assuming there's not, you smell it,
Mm-hmm.
and then you give it a little taste.
Mm-hmm. Can we do that now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Mm.
You don't want to take a huge glug of it, and this annoys some people. You kind of want to swirl it around. You want to add a little oxygen to your mouth while you're tasting it, so you can taste it fully.
So that's not to gargle, right? That's
It's not the gargle.
No,
no,
it's not a gargle.
It's not like the
That
mouthwash.
no.
Yeah.
That's different.
No, that's
It's
different.
not like I'm getting hints of scope.
Yeah, exactly.
No, okay.
That's not what you're looking for.
Yeah. Okay. Good. All
So
right.
now, is this called legs when it's running down the glass? Does that mean the wine has legs? Is that what that means?
Yeah, so it doesn't indicate a ton of stuff, but it indicates whether there's what the alcohol percentage is. The more alcohol and the more viscosity, and the more you're going to see those legs. But it really is not it's not indicative of a ton.
Well, that's okay because for I think, speaking for myself and perhaps for Mike and Mindy, like I don't actually need to know things about wine. I just want to look like I do. So to switch, then I great legs, and do that. No, okay, you're getting into don't do that.
No,
Definitely not
No.
a work context.
Yeah.
Yeah.
some like universal qualities you're looking for is it balanced? Does it taste good? And really, I mean, you're at dinner, right? So you want to find a wine that's going to taste better with food. So, I mean, you really want 1 + 1 equaling 3. You want the wine plus the food equaling more than the sum of its parts. That's really the objective.
Because 1 + 1 usually equals, Mike?
2.
Right. Get to 3.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
You nailed it.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So then, all right, we've smelled our wine, we've tasted our wine. What comes next?
So you've smelled and tasted, and now you.
This wasn't a trick question, Josh.
Right. So really, step 3 is drinking the wine with your food and with your meal, and sharing it with friends. And sharing wine's kind of a big part of this whole thing too.
Okay, but how do I know which one to order? We've done the tasting and the smelling and the drinking and the eating, but here I am in the beginning. I've got this giant book, and I'm looking down. And again, all I did. How is my current strategy, which is 1/3 down. Pick that one, like not the cheapest, but not like I feel like this is a relatively You use this strategy, right, Mike?
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. I actually think that there's now a conspiracy where the cheapest wine on the menu might actually be decent because they don't think people are going to order it.
What do you think of that conspiracy theory, Josh?
I think it's a flawed conspiracy. I think that I really think. I mean, yeah. So wines that jump off the shelves or the racks at a restaurant probably are going to be marked up the most. So again, if the folks you're with, you're at a steakhouse, and the Napa wines, I guarantee, are going to have probably the most markup of any wines on the list. So really what I would do is, there's New World and Old World are kind of the two big chunks of places wines are made. So if the folks you're with really like Napa, you're probably going to want to stay in the New World, which is South America, Australia, New Zealand, the US. So my recommendation would be look at South America. Look at a Malbec maybe from Argentina. Yeah. Or a Cabernet from Argentina. So Argentina and Chile, they have really, really high quality wines. And I guess the good news story of all this is wines continue across the board to increase in quality. Like that's just a kind of a universal truth.
This is like an unexpected good news story of 2026.
It's a good news story. There's another kind of bad news story is that wine regions keep getting warmer. So that means they're getting more and more ripe. And that really is a reality. And that's something winemakers are grappling with. So these warm climate regions, they're getting bigger and bigger, riper and riper wines. And they're having to harvest earlier. But that's another consideration.
What do you think, Mindy? You think you know how to order wine now?
I think I do. And I'm more of an old world person now. And
Me too.
what about like an Albarino? Like, am I saying that right? That seems to be less expensive on the wine list for sure, and very good.
Totally. So I think two of like the really popular expensive areas are Burgundy, white Burgundy, where Chardonnay is, and Sancerre in the Loire Valley with Sauvignon Blanc. So a great alternative, Mindy, is an Albarino. So that's from northern
totally
Spain.
Showing off. Did you see that? She just crushed it.
It's really
pretty good. Did you talk to him before to set that up?
I did not talk to him before. It literally at the place we commonly go, the Albarino is like $9.
All the Mindy
and the Sancerre is like
out
24.
there are going to be like, she won again.
Crushed it.
She always wins. She always wins the grab bag. Well done.
And people love Kim Crawford, who love Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand. There's nothing wrong with that. You know what you're getting day in, day out with that. But I would recommend or encourage people to look other places like Albarino or Touraine, which is very close to Sancerre, which is a fraction of the price of Sancerre, as a maybe alternative to look into.
All right. Well, I feel like we've all learned something here. What about you, Mike? Do you think you've learned anything?
I have. I know about bricking now, which I wasn't wasn't aware of.
No legs. Don't talk about the legs.
No talking about legs.
Yep.
And if I want to sound like I know what I'm talking about with white wine, I'm going to suggest an Albarino, perhaps.
Yeah. How about you, Mindy? What do you think?
Yeah, I like it.
I mean, for me, I've learned, like, I go out to dinner, I open that book, and I look for a Malbec from the Catskills.
Immediately South America.
That's right. And then bam. And then that's the move. So once again, Josh, thank you. Congressional lead by day, wine enthusiast and expert by night. Thank you for coming and joining the Messy Middle and teaching us a little bit.
Thanks for having me.
And that's a wrap. I'd like to thank my guest for today, founder of 23andMe, Anne Wojcicki, congressional lead and wine enthusiast Josh Connolly. If you liked it, you can rate and review us. You can subscribe in all your favorite podcast platforms. And we'll see you next time on The Messy Middle.